I'll kick off the recording and say welcome to everyone. Great to have you on board, and I'm looking forward to spending the next hour with you. There's a number of people who are, probably quite a few more people who are waiting for a recording of this, so I'll do that with people at the end as well. Just a quick introduction about me and a little bit of housekeeping. So if you've got your mute, bottom left there if you need it, there's different gallery views you can get from the screen just on the top right-hand side. And to be fair, just to say again, I'm recording. So if you're not comfortable with that, let me know. If you've got any questions, I'm happy for you to interrupt as we go. I don't like people to have to try and be distracted holding on until the very end, but I've got a lot of material to get through and I'm excited about sharing it with you. So interrupt if you need to, by all means. Otherwise, drop me a note, or I'm happy to talk afterwards offline as well. So who am I? Basically, I'll share with you, I'm a Proctor & Gallagher consultant, have been since 2016. I encountered this guy called Bob Proctor back in 2003, and I'll share a bit more about that later on. Prior to being in the business and corporate world, I was a school principal for 18 years. And so in that space, I spent a lot of time on human development, child psychology, studying how people learn and how people grow and so forth. And then in 2003, I jumped out and I got into the corporate and business world. I run my own company, Boom Business Technologies, where speaking and coaching is my key thing. I spent a couple of years with Toshiba as a government account manager, so a large corporate. I spent a couple of years as a national sales manager for an international franchising organisation where I spent quite some time in the sales environment, particularly remote and so forth across different time zones. And then I spent probably 6 years with Telstra, and 4 of those years were as a senior or area sales manager where I had responsibility for half of Queensland in the big end of town in the business sales, and a revenue responsibility there exceeding $43 million. So that got me out of bed in the morning, got me to some very interesting corporate training and some other experiences that I enjoyed. 4 years on board, 4 boards I've been on, 2 corporate and 2 not-for-profits, and that's been an interesting experience as well. One of them is a charity that I started myself, and it's been going since 1999. But if you want to know more about me, please go to seangordon.com.au and dig around. Most of the information's there, just so you know where I fit in, and the information about the charity and so forth is there as well. I've also loaded up there an article called Crossing the Knowing Doing Gap, which sort of fits in with this very well. It's a freebie. If you go to my website, you can just download it. And the Knowing Doing Gap's worth getting because it's the sort of stuff I'm speaking to today, where people know certain things, but they don't always do what they know. So looking forward to that. So this session's called Expect to Win. And it's a bit controversial. There was someone else out there who didn't like that I used the name of a program that he has. So that was interesting. But being the wordsmith that I am, I wanted to know what it really means. So expect to win is a simple little phrase. I think we know what it means. But I went to the Collins Dictionary to say, what does the word expect mean? And it means this. It means if you expect something to happen, you believe it will happen. I thought that's pretty straightforward. But then that brings up the word believe. And I thought, what does believe really mean? So I checked with the Collins Dictionary there too. And it said, if you believe something, it's a feeling of certainty that something exists, is true, or is good. So back to expect, if you expect something to happen, you believe it will happen. In other words, you feel certain it will happen, or that it exists, or that it's true. So my course is expect to win. Now the word win, what does that mean? So I had a look at that one as well in the dictionary. It says this, it says that you get it, whatever it is for you, you get it because you've defeated the opposition or you've done very well. So that's the game for today. And by the close of this session, I hope to make clear that the saying of old Henry Ford, that he's credited with this at least, that he said, if you think you can, or if you think you can't, either way, you're right. So, if you expect to win, and I mean this, if you really expect to win, I'm going to argue, and I hope convincingly in the next 50 minutes or so, you just will. So you ready to dive in? Let's put my screen up here for you. That's basically me. I hear a lot about the notion, this means my boardies, in the corporate and Telstra environment there, but I had a boardie, shorts, suit sort of a day where there was a bit of mix and match, and it spoke to me about the notion of work-life balance that a lot of people speak about these days. And I hear that increasingly and have done over the last 20 years. I'm aware of so many people, especially in the business and corporate space, who seem to live for Friday, who watch the clock really closely, who arrive just on time, leave just on time, who basically hang out for the weekend. There's nothing wrong with that, but I sort of think those people may not have found their purpose. Or if they have found their purpose, they're not able to engage their purpose at work. And I've done a bit of work with Gallup, and I've read some of their research, and I can say the implications of people who are not engaged at work are quite spectacular in terms of productivity. Quite spectacular personally for the person who's not engaged because it's boring, but for the business owner in terms of HR and hiring, and productivity outright. I think it's something to be very clear about is how engaged are my workers and how can I get them more so. By way of example, I suppose I could share that I'd love to sing. Now, I can't sing, so get that bit, but I'd love to sing. And I think if I could write songs and then go and sing them and go to a venue where people paid lots of money to come in to listen to me singing, I think that'd be about nirvana. And then if I could put tracks out there and they could download them, you'd think, well, I can write these things, I can sing them, and I get paid handsomely to do it. I can travel around the world and just do what I love to do and get paid well. I think that's what being on purpose is all about, and I would love to do it. I can't sing, of course, so I won't get into that game. But I have discovered my purpose in coaching. I love coaching. I love speaking. I love helping people. And I these days, having found my purpose, I love my life. And I've got a deep gratitude for the opportunity I have to play a little part in other people's lives as they find their purpose and then get on and live it. I take it terribly seriously. But sadly, I'm aware of a lot of people, and I don't mean just a few, and you might know some, who go somewhere pretty much every day that they don't want to go to. And they spend most of their waking hours at that place. They're there doing something that they don't really want to do. And they're with people that they don't want to be with. And sometimes that happens for 40 years. I think that's pretty sad. That's a reality for lots and lots of people, and it's a safety. The good news, the good bit, I'm going to share a concept with you today that literally changed my life, completely and utterly changed my life. It's understood, this concept, by everyone who succeeds, I believe, and by everyone who's ever won. It's been documented in the classic book, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. A copy over here. That Bob Proctor has a seminal work, and most of the people who are business coaches and personal coaches come back to this as their Bible, their source, really. This guy studied so many people who were successful from nothing to something over the years and documented the things they have in common. The stuff I'm going to share with you today comes out of that. It's documented in the classic book, Think and Grow Rich, for sure. It's shared in the movie The Secret, in the runaway sort of movie that Bob Proctor was part of, and in the book Born Rich. A copy over here that he wrote as well, a huge success as well, in which he details rich in financial terms, yes, but rich in life, in all aspects of life. So we're talking happiness, fulfillment, being engaged, and so on. The concept I'm going to talk about that changed me so much will explain why people like you, like me, behave as we do and therefore get the results that we get. Why people who know better still do things that they don't wish to do. Classic in dieting. I'm eating something even though I know I shouldn't. But I'll come to that. It'll explain why, if you get this concept that I'll share today, you can lift your results in all areas and you can do it rapidly, really, really quickly. So I'm a professional educator, as I said in my introduction. I've got 3 degrees in education, and I believe that ignorance is the biggest problem we face on this planet. For just about every problem I can see, I'll say if we get education at the back of this, we can fix it. Mark Twain, who you'll know, I'm sure, from school days, said, I never let my schooling get in the way of my education. Not a bad thought. So he gets that education is the stuff that you do, whereas schooling, in some respects, is about the knowledge that you learn. The education is about applying it. John Ruskin is one of the great educators too. A great quote about education that I love was, he said, teaching is not so much about getting people to know what they don't know, but it's more about getting them to do and behave in the way that they don't behave. So education really is an inside job. It's the stuff of life, and a very powerful reflection I want to share with you here. You may have seen it, but when I think about life, and I think of this old Indian chief who was talking to a grandson, and I believe it'll be the chief, I believe that dad probably hasn't got the wisdom yet, dad's probably still busy hunting. I think it was a grandfather talking to the younger one. And the chief said this about life, the old Cherokee chief. He said to the kid, "A fight is going on inside me," he said to the boy. "It's a terrible fight. And it's between 2 wolves. One is evil. He's anger, envy, sorrow." Remember, I've got other words, but these are the words of the evil wolf. Regret, greed, arrogance, self-pity, guilt, resentment, inferiority, lies, false pride, superiority as an opposite, self-doubt and ego. The other one's good. It's joy, it's peace, it's hope, love, serenity, humility. He goes on with kindness, benevolence, empathy, generosity, truth, compassion, and faith. Then the old guy says to the child, "The same fight is going on inside you and inside every other person too." And the kid, to his credit, asked a great question. He says to the grandfather, So which wolf will win? And the old chief simply replied, the one you feed. Now that speaks to me of choice. Therefore, if we get a choice about which one we feed, we can take control. We can respond versus being controlled and being reactive. I reckon some people never really live. They ultimately go to their graves victims of their story and their circumstances over which they have control, truth be told. I think we all love the movies and the clips where the people rise above the adversity and they do really well, despite the odds. I think we like that stuff. So if it's true that the old Cherokee chief, if it's true that the one you feed wins and that there's always a choice, it's not I'm going to argue, it makes sense then to ask these couple of questions. Which wolf do you feed? Which wolf do you feed at home? Which wolf would you feed at work? If you're a business owner, which wolf do you feed in your business? Which wolf do you feed physically in terms of your health? What about others, with others in terms of relationships? Which wolf do you feed financially or spiritually or academically? Because there's always ups and downs. There's always good and bad. And I reckon if you take nothing else from today, just this one thing, if you can become more aware of the fact that you feed what you want to feed and you get a choice in that outcome, then this whole hour will be a great worthy investment in yourself, I think. I could share a lot of examples from life that demonstrate how feeding the wolf, the lack and limitation sort of angle will manifest in low results. I could talk to you about some of the rescue experiences I've had with road rescue and with the big rescue up in Thredbo that I'll share a story on that I was personally involved in. I could share stories of sport, many stories of sport about how people believe and don't believe and they win. State of Origin is a great example. I'm convinced that Queensland has a greater belief about winning than New South Wales, right in their very kernel. Maybe I need to go and talk to the New South Wales team. And relationships. But I'll share one example from my time as a sales leader. There was two people in my group. Let's call them Tom and Debbie. Now, Tom, he'd been with the business for 8 years, and I was with him for 6, and Deb, or 4 at least, and Debbie was in the business for 2 years. Tom had developed a whole raft of pretty much ordinary beliefs, I think. He was blaming of most things and most people. He would complain about a lot of things and lament his lack of results on others all the time in circumstances. He'd say stuff like, the targets are too high. He'd say, no one buys at this end of the year. It's coming up to Christmas, Gordo. We couldn't know. The customers just don't want to buy anything. He'd say when I was with Telstra, prices are too high. They're going to go with Voda and Optus. He'd say people don't want cloud. They don't want applications. So whatever he was trying to sell, he had some reasons why he couldn't sell it. The funny thing was that Debbie, who'd come along, I was only there for 2 years, was smashing her targets. And she was selling a lot of product and had very happy customers. And one day I tried to counsel him about this, and I said, it's interesting. He never actually got it, sadly. But it's interesting that in the same place, I said to Tom, you've got the same targets to meet financially. You've got the same population that you're working in. You've got the same products that you're selling, and you're selling them at the same price. It didn't have much to do with the reasons that he blamed, but his mindset was not a healthy one. He was certain, I believe, he didn't expect to win, and he certainly didn't win. So it's a good little example, and there's many of them. So the curtain raiser on better results, I'm going to tell you, is awareness. First of all, that things can be better, and secondly, that I have the power to make them so. James Allen had a great quote. It's there in front of you if you can read it, but I'll read it for you anyway. That says this: the greatest achievement was at first, and for a time, a dream. The oak sleeps in the acorn. The bird waits in the egg. And in the highest vision of the soul, a waking angel stirs. Dreams, he says, are the seedlings of realities. So inside the acorn is an oak tree, not an apple tree. It's got all its stuff built into one little thing. Inside an egg is a particular type of bird, and it never fails. It's on purpose, and all the stuff that it requires is in that basic package at the beginning. I'm going to think if you can get in touch with your purpose, the stuff that you want to do, that you like to do, and that you're good at, you'll never have to work again, because what you're doing will be living and doing what you want to do. Jim Rohn, who many people will know, is a great mentor of mine, though I never met the man. He put a question to a group that I listened to on recording. He said, how tall will a tree grow? I thought it was a pretty funky question, but I was used to his sort of teaching style. And no one had an answer. He said, well, how tall will the tree grow? He said, as tall as it can. And again, it didn't seem particularly revealing. And then he went on, he said, of all the species on Earth, there's only one that regularly falls short of its potential. There's only one that regularly settles for less than it could actually achieve. There's only one that actually sabotages actively its own results and the results of its people around it. And that's the human race. So the good news is you're not a tree. You can think. You can take action. You can go ahead and do your thing. And I think it's a pretty powerful thing. And I love that quote by James Allen for that reason, that if you realise it, everything around you was once a thought. I'll go further and say if you develop the right strategy, you can make work a lot easier. And I've got a story that it's a bit interesting because it was a life and death struggle that I witnessed one day. And it was a circumstance where I became aware of the struggle going on. And as I listened, there was a buzzing sound, and it got louder and louder and more insistent. And I looked around for it, and then I found it. And it was just there on the windowsill. It was a little fly, and it was trying to get through the glass, and it was banging its head on the glass pane and increasingly insistent as it banged up and down and around. And you could see where it wanted to go. It wanted to make its way to the garden, but it was stuck with this glass pane. And try as it might, you know how this ends. That fly will belt itself on that window until it dies, trying harder and harder and harder. And I think a lot of us do that in life too. We just keep trying harder and harder. The irony was, from where I was standing watching this little thing play out, I could see that not more than 1.5 meters away was my back door, and that the back door was open. And so with a fraction of the effort and a change in strategy, that little fly could have left its death row on the window and flown out and achieved its goal in a fraction of the time. No time at all and no effort, really. But it never sort of got that consciousness. It never had that way of looking at its problem, and it tried harder and harder. Its paradigm kept it there until it dies. That's just how the thing goes. You might feel like that fly at the window sometimes, I reckon. But if you think, if you take action, and if you do your thing, I argue when I'm coaching people, change your plan sometimes. Change your strategy if you need to, but don't change your goal. Believe. If you really believe in what it is, and if you expect to win, and then if you bring into play those higher mental faculties that I'm going to share in a minute that we have because we're human, you can solve most problems. If you gang up with a few other humans to solve a problem, there's almost nothing you can't achieve. I want to introduce you to a few people who I'm sure you'll know, but these are people who shouldn't have won. They got up against the odds, and let me just show you how they get through. You'll know these people, but they shouldn't have won. J.K. Rowling. So there's a single mum doing it tough, on welfare, broke, not getting anywhere. She wrote these books. She took them to publishing houses who refused her. But you know the story. She's now one of the wealthiest women in the world. Winston Churchill. He failed 6th grade because he struggled in school. He failed in politics too for many years, but he never, ever gave up. At age 62, he became Prime Minister of the UK. Then 2 more times after that. And I love this bit for a guy who failed 6th grade. He then got a Nobel Prize for Literature in 1953. Dr. Seuss, to me, looks like a pretty happy chap there. But he was rejected by 27 publishers for the books that I'm sure everyone on this call knows. Now, he believed in the books. He believed in the benefit of them. But what if he knocked on door number 25 and stopped? What if he knocked on door number 26 and stopped? 27, said no. But he pushed on and he presented. And he's a household name. But he could have stopped and we would never have heard of the cat in the hat. I wonder how many stories there are where people are this close to breaking through and their belief isn't sufficient to push them through and they give up. The stuff we've probably missed out on, these great ideas that never came to fruition. Beethoven, they say he was awkward on the violin. Teachers thought he wasn't brilliant. Apparently he composed 5 of his best-loved symphonies while he was going deaf. Michael Jordan, kicked out of his own high school basketball team. He's missed more than 9,000 shots. He's lost 300 games, but still known as the best player because he achieved so much more. He never gave up. He pushed on, and it was what he did, not what he wasn't, where he didn't win, that got him there. Kept going. Great story of persistence there. Henry Ford, I've quoted already, but he was broke 5 times. His early businesses failed. Everyone knows the Ford Motor Company. There's a whole story on its own about how he demanded the building of a V8 motor. You don't be mechanical. No, I'm just telling you that they believed it couldn't be constructed, that such a thing, engineering-wise, could not possibly be done. He just said he expected it, expected to win, pushed it out there, made them go, and would check in on how their progress was. And if you read the story, we've got V8 motor cars. That guy's belief and his absolute insistence that they would develop one was incredible. Walt Disney fired from his newspaper editor because he said he lacked imagination, had no good ideas. Hello. He went bankrupt, failed a number of businesses, and then he spawned this multi-billion-dollar industry that we all know and love so well. Most people love it. Thomas Edison, his teacher said he was too stupid to learn anything. He got fired from 2 jobs, so he apparently was unproductive. He failed 1,000 times with his invention. Now, we all know about the light. So I guess what I'm trying to say is if you're on purpose, if you find your thing, you mustn't listen to the naysayers. You mustn't listen to people who say, you can't do this thing. You must instead say, no, this is my purpose. This is what I do. This is what I'm called to do. There's a little cartoon that I sometimes use where it's got a picture of animals sitting on the side in a classroom situation, and there's a fish in a bowl and there's a monkey in different ones, and it says, if a fish was judged and assessed on its ability to climb trees, it would go through its life thinking it was stupid. But of course we know fish aren't meant to climb trees. Fish are meant to swim, and they're very good at that bit. But we often put these expectations on people as silly as saying, you fish, you should climb the tree, and we'll judge you based on that. Our peers do it. It happened to Edison. It happened to the people I've just gone through. Other people put these expectations on them that were not tapping into their purpose and their potential. I hope that makes some sense. The acorn always grows in a particular type of tree. It doesn't grow into an apple tree. It doesn't grow into a peach tree. Its DNA is ready to go and do a certain thing. So is yours. You have a purpose. We each have a purpose. Finding your purpose is a worthwhile pursuit. Living in purpose is having the most wonderful life, and I think most people find that. Earl Nightingale had this to say about the world and so forth. He said, the world is a living expression of how you are using and how you have used your mind. It's worth repeating. What you see outside of you, it's a living expression of how you have used and how you are using your mind. Thoughts, I need to argue with you, is that this is all about this. Thoughts are so powerful. They literally create their own reality. And if we knew how powerful thoughts were and put in my little advert, you wouldn't entertain a negative thought again, because they are creative things. They literally create everything. Anything you use, anything you know about, anything you say was originated in thought. There is nothing. It didn't come up as an idea, and the idea came in thought. There's a story that's credited to Mother Teresa. And they say she was asked to join the war on terror, and she refused. And people said, well, but Mother, you're a very peace-loving person, surely. She said, no, she understood the power of thoughts and words, and she said, if you're going to have a war on terror, I'm going to tell you, you'll have more war and you'll have more terror. And I think we can all see how that's going at the moment with our war on terror. She also said, if you invite me to your march for peace, I'll come tomorrow. So it's really important to be aware of what we're doing, be aware of the thoughts that we're entertaining, because it's our thoughts that manifest in our results. Earl Nightingale, the father of all this stuff, had that to say. So it's a terrific little quote. I think instead of a bit of humour, maybe we should have this little cartoon here that sort of says, the war on drugs brought in more drugs and the war on terrorists brought in more terrorists. Maybe next year we can have a war on farmers' markets. Another little quote for you here. I'll read it in case you can't see it from where you're at, or if you're driving, like Jan is. It's about self-image, and it's by a guy called Maxwell Maltz. He was a cosmetic surgeon working in the US, probably around 1964. And I've got some interesting things to share about him in a moment. But he said this, the self-image is the key to human personality and human behaviour. Change the self-image and you change the personality and the behaviour. Now, the implications for that are pretty important, because it's your behaviour that gives you your results. How you behave gets a reaction and you get a result of that. But he goes back and says the self-image, what you believe about yourself internally, is what is the key to human behaviour. He wrote a book called Psycho-Cybernetics, and I've got a whole lesson about this, but it won't fit into today. But essentially it's about the fact that we set a controlling level on ourselves in terms of what we think we can do. It's the Henry Ford stuff. If you think you can or if you think you can't, either way you're right. It's the stuff of millionaires who go bankrupt getting their money back again because they believe that's where they belong. It's the stuff of people who win the lottery going broke very quickly after accumulating all that money from the lottery, because they believe they're not millionaires. They don't have that sort of money, and they frit it away and they get rid of it. It's a It's a cybernetic sort of process that he describes in his book, Psycho-Cybernetics, written way back in 1964. It's sexist in orientation if you buy it. If you read it, it will give you a new distinction as to about everything in life and why people hold themselves in the pigeonholes that they stay in, that I'm hoping I can help people crack out of. It's environmental controls that, like the fly out the window, don't need to be adhered to, and that can be broken through if people wish to do that. Here's another guy, Arndo, an Australian fellow, an extraordinary story, and another guy who shouldn't have achieved, the most unlikely winner. I guess someone, and I think it was his mother in large part, forgot to instill in his subconscious that he shouldn't expect any better, because, gee, he had a great life, and what he got onto, considering that he's a refugee, considering that he comes from a non-English speaking background, that they settle in Western Sydney in a low socioeconomic area with low job prospects, considering his third grade teacher told him he should drop out or something because he was so hopeless. His mother got him tutored and never let him hear those sorts of words. His home was a broken home. His father was estranged and moved down to Melbourne. He had to work part-time just to get by and help pay the bills at home. You know, all these things went against him, but nevertheless, he got through year 12. He went to university. He got a law degree. Now, for most people, if you've got a child who's gone through, done university, got a law degree, you'd say, hey, they've arrived. My daughter's a lawyer. Wow, look at that. You'd think they've achieved. That wasn't quite enough for him. He then had a crack at the stand-up comic game, and I won't tell you how he got into that. It's quite amusing, but anyway, in his style. But he became a stand-up comedian and very accomplished at it. In fact, he didn't practice law because he was so good at this. Then he went on this program, Dance with the Stars, and he won that, you know, like you can't dance. And there's a whole huge funny story about that as well. But, you know, he's got a TV show. So now he's got a law degree. He's been a successful stand-up comedian. He's won a program on TV and he's got some fame locally. And he got into painting. The painting that I was on the screen here now is a painting of his father. He's an accomplished painter, or artist at least, and he entered the Archibald Prize. And, believe it or not, runner-up with that painting. So I know people who would go through an artistic career for their entire life. If they got something submitted into the Archibald Prize, they would think they've had a wonderful career, and they would have. To be runner-up would be, you know, peak. They think they've had the best time ever. But in addition to the other things he'd already achieved, that's just another thing that he managed to do. Then he wrote a book called The Happiest Refugee. Awesome story. I recommend it. About someone who did some great stuff. Of course, it was nominated for Australian Book of the Year and it won. So now he's a runaway bestseller author. He's a keynote speaker. He charges more than me by a good bit. Like, he's accomplished. He's got his own TV program that you may have seen where he interviews people while he paints, which is quite incredible. And then I think he's going to end up being an actor as well, because when we met him 18 months or so ago, he was telling us that Russell Crowe called in relation to this book. And he said Russell Crowe wants to make a movie out of it. He said, I agreed to the movie on one condition. The condition is that I play the part of my father. Now, I wouldn't mind betting. I just wouldn't mind betting he'll win an Oscar, or he'll win a Logie, or both. So there you go, a guy for refugee, all the wrong reasons that he shouldn't have succeeded, all the right reasons for not succeeding, if he believed those things. Law degree, stand-up comic, Dancing with the Stars winner, Archibald Prize runner-up, runaway best-selling author, keynote speaker, has his own TV program, possibly, probably, who knows, an award-winning actor. I think he's done all right. Which brings me to the topic of results and how they happen and where they come from. And, you know, the question I ask people is, do results matter? Well, of course they do. You see, there's no static state. We're either creating or disintegrating. If you go to the gym, you're developing a bit. If you stay home, don't think nothing happens. You know, you're either growing or disintegrating. There is nothing that stays still. If your business doesn't adapt to a certain new technology, a certain thing that happens, and the others do, you're disintegrating by comparison. You simply can't stay still. The law of opposites said there's up and there's down, there's in and there's out. There's growth and there's disintegration, but there is no static. So I'm saying that can we change our results? And what I want to get through today and what I want you to leave with today is that I say, yes, we can. A resounding yes, we absolutely can change our results. And it's something that everyone can do. It's as surely as freedom was always available to that fly in the window if it just changed its strategy and went away from the glass and out of the door. So before I share a concept called the stick person, which is what this is centering on today, before I share it with you, it's a concept that changed everything for me. I'd like to just share a little story about how I came to know about the stick person, because it's quite an amazing story for me. It was 2002. I was principal of a place called Nudgee Junior College, as it was known then, out in the river at Indooroopilly. I'd become aware of Bob Proctor through his program and his book called Born Rich. And he came to Australia. He was down at Sydney for a weekend, and I spent $4,000 in 2002. I went to Star City Casino for a weekend to see himself doing the Born Rich program. And he had a guy with him called John Canary, who was doing a program called Breakthrough Limitation. It was a 2-day event. I was excited to go. And you wouldn't believe it, I was fortunate to be invited to a private lunch with the guy. So there were about half a dozen of us at a lunch one day, Saturday or Sunday. And what I later learned was a replay of his own experience with a fellow called Ray Stanford. Proctor challenged me and my wish for personal development. I don't know if he knew because I was a school principal or what, I don't know, because I travelled so far to get there, but he said this to me. He said, "Who are you?" And I looked at him and he said, "Seriously, do you know who you are?" And I looked at him and I said, "Sean?" He said, "No." And I said, "Sean Gordon." And he said, "No, that's just your name. You could change that. You could pop down at $50 at the local legal office. That's just a name some people gave. There's some words. That's not you." And I thought, oh. He said, "So who are you?" And so then I sort of stood there and I indicated my physical self, with my hands. And I said, "Oh, it's me. I'm Sean Gordon." And he said, "No, that's your body. That's not you." And so I was feeling a little bit self-conscious now with these people looking at me because I couldn't answer him. And he said, "That's just a thing you move around in, but it's not you." And he says, "No one says, am head, am leg." He said, I said, "No, well, it was pretty clear that I wasn't my name and I wasn't my body." So Proctor then made a compelling argument for me. He said this: in order for you to grow, you really need to know who you are. It's a starting point. As an aside, I think it's the same for business. If your business is going to grow, I think you really need to know with a lot of clarity, what's it all about? And, where's it at as a starting point? I knew who he was, and I knew that he knew what he was talking about, and I respected the wisdom of this man, and I really wanted to work more closely with him, and I wanted to learn from him. So, otherwise I'm not throwing something at him. But I realised then, so I'm not my name, and I'm not my body. I think most people think they are their name or their role, or a combination of those things. But anyway, I was later to learn that we live on 3 planes. I don't mean aeroplanes, but he said we learned that we exist on it, the plane of physical, intellectual and spiritual planes. And that collectively, that makes up my mind. That's the amalgamation of me, who I am, is physical, intellectual and spiritual, all tied up together. So getting a clear handle on exactly who I was became a more complex task, and one that I really committed to. As an educator, as a professional educator with qualifications and 18 years as a school principal, let me tell you, it was a bit embarrassing to realise that people can go right through life, including university, and arrive with not much knowledge about who they are or what makes them tick. Now, there's a problem out there because of this lack of insight into ourselves. And I've got to tell you, it often leads to us treating symptoms, not causes. And this is seminal for today. The causes of underachievement. Regularly we're working on the symptoms. In corporations, we're treating symptoms. In businesses, we're treating symptoms. And I rather think in sales and with people, we're treating symptoms. And until we treat the whole person and address the cause, there will be no change, and certainly no change of any substance, and certainly no change that will last. An example would be, of a symptom, for example, would be, you just got yourself a new BMW, and you paid $120,000 for it, and you're popping down the M1, and a red light comes up near the oil sign, and the red light's flashing at you. Well, of course, this red light's going to annoy you, so you've got to do something about it. It's a symptom of something going wrong, and it's flashing. But if you pull your car over to the side of the road, and with a $120,000 car, and you get your pliers out and you open the bonnet and get underneath and find from the back of the dash, find that wire that goes to the red light and snip it. That'll fix the problem for you. You're back in the car, you won't see the red light anymore, problem solved. Well, I think we know how that goes. That doesn't go. Something is still going wrong. You've just taken away what the visible symptom was. People do this all the time with their life. If they're overweight, they take shakes and pills. Snip. Low sales. They're going to practice their presentation skills. Snip. It's a bit like my mate Tom. It wasn't that he couldn't tell the story. He didn't believe what the story was all about. Someone's got back pain and they take Aspro repeatedly. Snip. Eventually, the cause has to be addressed or the problem will persist. It's just how it's got to be. But happily, the solution is a relatively simple one. It's deep, it's complex, but it's simple. And in order to explain, or for you to understand, I need to explain a couple of things. Primarily, I need to understand that we think in pictures. So, for example, if you can try and imagine your car, you know, you're in your car, Jan, what colour is your car? What colour is the inside of your car? Where is your car parked right now? And can you visualise where it is? What's in the boot? Have a think about a can of Coke, bag of cheese, twisties, a lemon. What about your fridge? Have a think about your fridge. Have you got a 4-door fridge or a 2-door fridge? Have you got a side-by-side fridge? Does the door open from the right to the left or the left to the right? You see, I'm giving you words and you're getting images. They're my words, they're your pictures. But we think in pictures. And you temporarily left when I talked about your fridge, for example, and you went back to your kitchen and you visited your kitchen and you could visualise and see exactly what it was. So here's a test for you. What do you see when I use the word mind? In a room, I typically ask people, and typically people say they get an image of a brain, you know, the walnut-shaped thing that we see on pictures, and that's a brain. Well, your brain is no more your mind than your finger or your knee. So your mind is those three things all collectively put together, three planes that you live on. So the brain is not the mind. And here's where we found a way about solving some of the problems of the world with a guy called Dr. Thurman Fleet. In 1934, he became aware of the healing arts were a bit of a problem. He said, we've got people with mental health issues and all sorts of issues, and we can't really treat them very well because we have no picture for the mind. There's no cells of recognition whatsoever. And in the absence of that, he argued, we wouldn't be able to treat much. And so he said, I'm going to draw the mind, which is not a bad thought. And this is the image I'm going to share with you. I'm going to draw the mind. So you now have a picture of the mind. Once you've got a picture, you can then start doing things differently about it. So let me just show you. This is the picture that changed my life entirely. Just let's let the large circle on the top, if you're not watching the video here, there's a large circle, a little circle joined by a line. Let the large circle on the top represent your mind. The conscious mind, the subconscious mind, and then the small circle on the bottom, let's let that represent your body. It's what you walk around in. Understand this, the body is part of the mind. I'll just explain. We have physical, intellectual, spiritual. So the body is part of the mind, but the body is actually an instrument of the mind. So your body goes and does certain things based on what your conscious, subconscious mind tell it to do. Consider, for example, someone you know meeting somebody new. So they go out, whether they're shy or whether they're gregarious, it doesn't really matter, but they go and meet someone new. Some people will bail out there and be very powerful in the way they interact. Others will be, be held back. The difference in the way they behave, as the action goes out, is that it's their conditioning that causes that. So people are all the same in terms of their nature, but their programming helps change what they do. And I'll explain this further here. If I show here the conscious mind, that's basically your thinking mind. It's where your academic stuff is. It's where all your knowledge and your books and your degrees will sit. Your subconscious mind is where you feel stuff. It's your emotional mind. Completely different place. But your subconscious mind is what drives your body into action. And it's if your beliefs in there are strong about something, your action will be strong. You'll get a reaction from whatever it is that you're doing, and your results will be delivered that way. And we're all programmed with DNA at birth. We're all programmed by our environment as we grow up. Our parents and so forth put stuff in our subconscious mind as we're little. They help us believe who we are and where we fit into the world. So just to explain a little bit further, the conscious mind, subconscious, the body, in the conscious mind we think. Our thinking mind is connected up to the world by these receptors that you'll recognise, our ability to hear, see, smell, taste and touch. That connects us to the world. And we can bring information in from outside, and that's why our environment can impact us so much. That's why the news can get us and so forth. We can bring it into our conscious mind, we can entertain thoughts. Conscious mind has a sense of choice and has free will. It's aware of past and present. It has the higher mental faculties that separate us from the animal kingdom. So the conscious mind has will, perception, reason, memory, imagination, and intuition. And each of those skills are underutilised for the most part by most people. But there's a whole lot of time we can spend developing those skills so you can become aware of what you're capable of, and you can think up your own thoughts in the way that a tree can't, in the way that the fly couldn't. Does that make sense? So that's the thinking mind. Interestingly, you can think up a whole bunch of stuff and make all sorts of decisions in your conscious mind, but nothing might happen in terms of your results changing. And the reason is, when you're thinking about things, you can make a decision, but it doesn't mean you'll act. Like, people make decisions to give up smoking, to get fit. People have what sometimes you entertain thoughts if you're driving along of road rage, that you might tell someone where to get off. There might be someone who's annoyed you, you just love to hit them. You can have those thoughts. It doesn't mean you'll actually do anything about it. What happens is, when you think certain things up and you allow them into your subconscious mind and you feel engaged, you feel emotionally attached to doing a certain thing, then you might take action from your subconscious belief. You go out into the world and you act on your feelings, and you get a reaction from the world, be it a sale, be it a relationship, whatever it might be, and you get a result delivered. Happens every single time. But it's the subconscious mind that drives your body into motion. So just to add a few more layers in here now. So we've got the conscious mind does all the thinking. The subconscious mind is the feeling, emotional mind. This is where your beliefs sit. This is where your mindset is. This is where your habitual behaviour. And we say the word paradigms. I'm going to describe that as a collection of habits that cause you to do things without even thinking. And this is what we do most of the time, most of the day. We run on habits. And our paradigm is the way we look at the world. So, for example, I'm born here in Australia, therefore I sort of think Australian thoughts a lot. It's just what happens. But if I was taken away from here at 18 months of age and dropped into Ireland or Syria or Germany or Cambodia, my belief system would be completely different. What I'm prepared to do and say and even eat and believe in terms of, say, a God, would be totally different. I'd be the same person, same DNA, but my subconscious mind and my mindset and my paradigm, as it were, my way of looking at the world, would be formed in a different environment. Therefore, my values would be different. My reactions would be different. And it's a critical point to understand, because most of the feelings that you have didn't come from you. It came from people who care about you. Usually your parents, the school you went to, the church, if you're part of that scene, the community, the media where you live, all the stuff that gets dumped into your head. The subconscious mind has no choice, no judgment, no concept of time, no concept of present tense. Now, sports people know this and they leverage it handsomely. They rehearse things and they play as if, and they fake it till they make it. And the body actually performs, because it can't do anything else. It just accepts what is put into it. You can change the subconscious mind. I'm going to share some of that in a moment through repetition, through emotional impact, hypnosis, and energy psychology, in areas that I really don't know about. But anyway, that's what happens. Your body goes into action. The action goes out into the community or the world or wherever it is you're operating. You get a reaction from there and you get results. So shy people going out, having your head down, so almost excusing themselves, get a certain reaction from people they meet. Confident people go out, they have the same place, they shake hands, they look the person in the eye, they say something, bang, there's a different result in terms of the relationship that emerges there. Happens with sales. If it happened to my salesman I know, he didn't believe in the product he was selling, he got a result every single time. Happens to people getting fit. Whatever it might be, there's an action, reaction causes results. But we need to understand that the subconscious is the key. It's where things happen. It's where things are driven from. It's the little you that you talk to when you go to bed at night. It's the you that you hear in the shower. It's the you that you look at in the mirror. It's the voice that you know, I don't really believe this thing that I do. And that's what drives your actions. And so that's where we need to spend most time to make significant changes in results. Albert Einstein, who I think was a rather good thinker, had this to say. He said, the intuitive mind is a sacred gift, and the rational mind is a faithful servant. He goes on and says, we've created a society that honours the servant and has forgotten the gift. The intuitive mind, here it is, the conscious mind is the sacred gift, and this is the faithful servant, Albert Einstein. There's a whole bunch of others who attest to this. In fact, I've got an article from just this year with quantum physicists explaining exactly this point of view with 2017 research. So this is a conscious mind. The subconscious mind is the faithful servant. It will do whatever it's bidding, whatever you tell it to do. Conscious mind is the gift. And as he said, we've created a society that honours the servant, forgotten the gift. We don't use our higher mental faculty sufficiently to dream, to create, to make changes in our lives and our environment, which we can and ought to do. So my question is, to anyone here, are you stuck? in any way? Are you stuck with family, stuck with finances, stuck with jobs, stuck with business growth, stuck with health? Because most people get stuck at some point or other. My challenge would be to say, don't let any people work on you by working on the symptoms, the SNP thing. Don't let anyone work on symptoms. The cause is critical. Our paradigms that are held in subconscious is where most of the work needs to take place. Why do I believe this thing? And when will I change it? If you change your thinking, you change your beliefs. If you expect to win, then you will. I really believe this. If you expect to win, then take action. Take committed action. You're not a tree. You're not a fly. You can make changes because you have the power. I argue that it's always now is the time to do it, not the 31st of December. That's a SNP thing too. People wait till the start of the month, start of whatever, and they say, oh, I'll start on the 1st of January, and then the New Year's resolution is busted by lunchtime because there's been no real change in the subconscious. They haven't really shifted the value to one of being healthy or one of having a better relationship or one of taking that committed action with my business. It's just an idea that floats in the head. In the conscious mind, it's never really impressed emotionally and powerfully into the subconscious. You don't really believe it. So therefore, back to the name of this session, you don't really expect to win, and you probably won't. You have to expect it with belief. So if you don't want the next 10 years to be like the last, then now is the time to do something different. I love this little quote here too, where someone says, unsuccessful people make decisions based on their current situations. Successful people make decisions based on where they want to be. So looking ahead, not based on the balance sheet, saying, well, this is the report card so far. If J.K. Rowling did that, if any of those people I just rolled through, if Arne Doe did that, you think I'm a refugee based here, make decisions based on my circumstances, I'll go nowhere. The successful people read all of their stories. They make decisions based on where they want to be. They expect to win, and they go out and take committed action, absolutely committed action, and they get out and win. That's what changes the game for them. How does this go? Well, look, motivation gets you started. People can say that. You will get motivated. People do get motivated. The gyms live on it. Habit's what keeps you going. To form a habit, you need to repeat. You have to keep repeating a certain thing until it becomes something that you do without conscious thought. A collection of habits, as I shared a minute ago, becomes a paradigm. The little image I've got here shows this way. If your paradigm is what drives your behaviour, and your behaviour drives your results, then I'm going to tell you, if you get the paradigm spinning, the results will absolutely take off, which was evidenced by so many of the great success stories. But the place to work is not on the results. It's not on the behaviours. It's not on learning more stuff and more things in your conscious mind. Your paradigms exist in your subconscious mind, and that's the place that we need to work. That's the place I spend all of my time with people that I try and help out. It just is a better place to go. I hope that makes sense. I hope it's lifted your sense of awareness about the potency of thought, because thought it creates everything for you. And I'd love to think that you take the opportunity to grow personally and professionally as a choice, realising that you just can do that. Jim Rohn said, the evidence would say it's possible to live the life that you design on purpose. You can create it if you want it, but you do have to make some decisions. You've got to be very clear about what you want. Be very clear about the decision that you make, and then you've got to take the action to get there. No one says it's easy, but it's totally doable. And the people who are countercultural, who are prepared to step up and say, I'm going to get on with it, will smash through all sorts of barriers. So it's awareness, decision, action, and then reflection or accountability. And if you're open to that program, or a program that I've got that'll take you down this way, it'll walk you by the hand in terms of being successful and understanding your paradigms. And some of these little concepts I've shared today really expound upon over a period of time so you can get to understand them and put them into practice in your life, then I'd love to share a bit more about it. This program's called Thinking the Results. It's a 12-lesson program, and it goes over 24 weeks. It's quite incredible. It's been based on 57 years of research into human potential, what makes people tick, the sorts of things I've just given you an insight to, and just the briefest insight to today, that can drive things for you. So 12 lessons over 24 weeks. You could ask why. Well, we go through the lessons, each of the lessons once, and then we do them all again, because there's so much content and it's so rich that it takes 12 lessons to get across it all. And then on the second lap through, people really get some depth. They really make some traction because they can get all the nuance that they picked up in lesson 2, 3, and 4 and so forth. As we come back again, they've got all the insights from lessons 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 to add into lessons 2, 3 and 4. It really is a fabulous program. Bob Proctor's on the program himself. Every single lesson, he is the teacher. We stream him live, or we've got a recording. He's the master teacher, and he explains the concepts brilliantly. There's a weekly webinar. There's question and answer support. The webinars are recorded, so it doesn't work for someone. We typically do them Thursday night. People can tap in later on. There's one-on-one coaching sessions. You'd have to deal with me for those. And there's someone to hold your hand. There's someone to guide and support you. And if you give permission for that, if you want accountability, then there's someone to kick in the bum as well. As I said, it's been proven over 56, 57 years now to help people set and achieve goals, absolutely individually and collectively in businesses and organisations. It's been run in Fortune 500 companies, been run in all sorts of places right around the world. When I was in Toronto at my training, I was sitting with people from every continent. I was sitting with the education minister for Spain. He said, this should be in every school. I was sitting with psychologists and psychiatrists who said, wow, they've learned all about how the mind works and neural pathways and all the mechanics of the mind and so forth. But they said, this gives rubber to the road. This is how to apply the stuff that will change your life and give you the results. And at the end of the day, it's all about results. It's the one thing you want. Whatever your result is, this will deliver it if you want it. Helps to change your paradigms, and it eliminates negative habits and beliefs permanently. So not like a weekend course where you get up, you get excited, and you fall back down on Monday, the emails come in and the world comes back and gets you again, and you forget, or you even get frustrated sometimes that you haven't had a growth session. This is over enough time. 24 weeks is a sufficient amount of time to bed down some new habits with support to really know, why am I doing certain things? What do I really want to do? And get into a new rhythm completely of what you want to do. As I said, there's support and accountability. There's a community involved, and it can be used for changing careers, health, but even people have said, come in for business, have said this has changed their relationships with their kids, with their spouse. It's changed their finances because all the results come from the same source. It's your belief. Back to what Henry Ford said, if you believe you can or believe you can't, either way you're going to be right. You have to expect to win. This will help you do that. The 12 models, without going into any real depth, but module 1's about setting a worthy ideal. And we talk about a goal and a big goal, one that you've never achieved before. And we've got 3 types of goals. There's only one that's really worth working on, and that's, we call it a worthy ideal, and we describe success in that space. Session 2 is about crossing the knowing-doing gap, about making decisions. Topic 3 is about replacing old ideas with new ones. And that's, really understanding how your mind works. The secret genie on module 4, that's the stick person that I've given a brief introduction to tonight. We spend a week on that. And we really get in the sense of what is the subconscious mind and how do you put things into your subconscious mind proactively, and how do you recognise habits and paradigms that are not serving you well and put them down and walk away from those old habits. How do you do that? Well, we've got a structure to show you. We show you how to discover the potential within. We show you in lesson 6 thing about the environment. So that's really about the fly and psycho-cybernetics. We have a real good look at how you set your thermometer, your thermostat for your life. If you think you're a $60,000 a year person, or you think your business is a $2 million a year business, you set a thermostat, and we show you how you can change that. In module 7, we talk about the terror barrier. This will be my favourite lesson. It's where we use the stick person to show people how physiologically you end up in a state of anxiety or even depression. If you get to trying to do something like jump a few rungs on the success ladder, when you get to that entry point, it's tantamount to opening the door on a parachuting run. As soon as the door opens, the terror barrier flies up, you're scared to jump out. We talk about how it happens daily, regularly in business and in life, and how that you can steel yourself for your tandem jump through the terror barrier, which you need to do multiple times to grow. It's a simple process, and we teach it. And how to integrate your beliefs with your behaviours, we call that practice. It's a word that's getting some real credibility in the corporate space now. That's really about walking your talk. And a lot of people don't do that. Lesson 9, that's about attitude. It's a wonderful lesson. And number 10, there's a lesson there about how to become a great leader. And we talk about leadership and followership and what it means to be a leader individually and then of other people. Leaving people with an impression of increase is module 11. And that is, when you encounter people in your life, they should feel better because they've met you. It all sort of layers up very nicely. And the final one is a beauty, particularly for organisations, but for individuals. It's about the mastermind. And we give you a process so you can actually mastermind with other people. And if you get a number of people together on a common cause, there's almost nothing you can't achieve. But we have a process for that we teach. It brings all that information together. We say, if you mastermind this topic, you'll fly. The program was created by Bob Proctor, particularly. It's his material. That's his copy of Think and Grow Rich. A little bit worse to wear than mine. He reads it every day and has done, and it's given him great growth. Sandy Gallagher is a corporate attorney from New York. She was on Wall Street. You can look for her. She's social proof about her brilliance. She brought the corporate thinking and wants to bring the program that Proctor had for individuals into the corporate world. This is why it's been so well received in businesses, small and large, and in full-on corporations, and why it has application for individuals. She's taken all of his stuff, put it in a system, and collectively run it out over 24 weeks. So it's really quite brilliant. Coming in for landing, I just say, wherever I go, I see this information. It's all over the place. This is off the wall in my gym down at the Redcliffe Dolphins. Napoleon Hill's quoted there. It says, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. That speaks to me of, expect to win. Believe this stuff. To accomplish great things, we must not only act, but also dream. Not only plan, but also believe. There's another great thinker. And there's more of them on the wall there. They keep going around. But the wisdom's everywhere. I guess what I want to say in closing is if you're ready to make changes at a subconscious level, if you really want to get cracking, this program, Thinking into Results, I believe is the best offering in the world right now. I'm enrolling right now. We've got a new group beginning in January. People are starting right at this moment as well. If you want to play, let's talk. And I believe in rewarding people who take action straight away. So if you come to me within, by 5 o'clock tonight, if you're listening to this live, or if you're on, and I'll know if someone downloads it and listens to it, if you come to me within a few hours of listening, I'll offer a 10% reduction in the price of this program for people who take action and say, let's talk. I want to have a look at Thinking the Results. All I need is your mobile, your email, and the best time to call. But failing that, I hope today's been worthwhile. I hope you got something from it. And I'll cancel our recording from here and wish you a happy day.